Aside from being an engineer and a lawyer, and I should have also become an epidemiologist because I wish I had more answers, but I don't.
Welcome to the Think Splendid YouTube channel. My name is Lynn Stevens, and I'm the founder and CEO of Think Splendid, where we provide business strategy for luxury wedding and hospitality brands. In celebration of 15 years in business, I'm sitting down with 20 wedding industry leaders from around the world to discuss the realities of owning an event business in 2020. These splendid conversations are honest, candid, and authentically optimistic. In this episode, I chat with my friend Marcy Blum, a celebrity wedding planner and entertainment expert based in New York, and the author of Wedding Planning for Dummies. Marcy and I talk about the stigma attached to changing your mind as a business owner, why she switched her pricing model, giving up her office space in Manhattan because of the pandemic, and more. Here's our conversation. Enjoy. Do you want to tell us how you got into the industry?
I had gone to performing arts high school, and I was an acting major, and then I went to chef school, and my mother was a great hostess, and I always loved entertaining, and this sort of evolved from my peculiar set of talents, more about what I could do with this amalgam of talents that I had, as opposed to a lifelong desire to be an event planner, so to speak.
You had to deal with your parents to finish school early, right?
No, I had to deal with my parents that I would finish high school, because I was living with my boyfriend, and they were certainly against that. I was too young to be doing that. They were right in retrospect, but rather than the deal was that I would finish school if they would stop, harassing me. So that's basically what we did. Yeah. And I finished high school, at least.
One of the things you talk about a lot is you are an information sponge. Like, you pay attention to everything. You want to know about everything. You read the news. You're on social media, do all of that. And I remember when we first met, I introduced myself and you said, "No, I know who you are. I read your blog." And that surprised me, not because, like, who was I? No one. But that you actually read it, that you were paying attention back when this was all brand new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much like yourself. I'm very curious and very, I hate not knowing something, which happens a lot. I mean, at the moment, considering the political arena and the state of the world, I could probably do with reading a lot less, but I can't seem to help myself. And I'm fascinated by people and their approach to things, and also if I download one more reading list from someone who I respect and yet never get time, I'll buy the books, and they're sitting next to my bed. So I really should stop doing that. But I'm hoping that the information will get to me through osmosis. But nonetheless, yeah, I think there's a lot of people in this business who don't understand that knowledge in any form, not necessarily industry specific, is very important, just not only to run a business, but to relate to your clients, to relate to your staff, to relate to vendors. You've heard me say this a million times, and I'm not the only one to say it. For someone who says, "I don't want to discuss politics," well, that's ridiculous. I mean, politics is who you are. So how can you not discuss that? That's absurd. That's like saying, "I don't want to discuss morality or ethics or principles or anything I believe in." You have to be
right
to defend or emote who you are, I think.
You and I agree on that, especially because politics are shaped by your values. That's plain and simple. Your politics are shaped by your values. Okay. And that's why I feel, and I know you feel the same way, if I keep all of that offline and keep it to myself, first of all, that's not my personality. I'm very bossy. But second, if I keep that to myself, within 10 minutes of hiring me, you're going to know. So you might as well know upfront what I feel about things, because my opinions are going to come out. I'm not going to keep them to myself.
As are mine, yeah. And certainly in the world that we're living in now, there are no, you can't be sitting on a fence. Not the way it's working.
And you even put in your social media bios, like Instagram and Twitter, whatever it says about how fabulous you are in your career, and then fiercely against Donald Trump.
Yeah. Did that 4 years ago, maybe. Absolutely. I just, not that I'm an influencer, but I felt whatever influence I did have, certainly in our niche industry, I I felt that it was important that I share with people that they're allowed to have an opinion as well, and be overt about it, and not it's not a secret. There's so many gay people in our business. There's so many people of color in our business. There's so many people who are activists, and I don't think it's something that should be kept undercover at this point.
Right. And I don't think it's something you can really keep undercover in the event industry, because at some point you're going to have to be accountable for the events you take on. And if that's fundraisers for killing all the penguins in Antarctica or whatever, then
A
you
lot of
help do that.
a lot of people feel differently, Lynn. I mean, you and I
I
agree,
know.
but
I
a
know.
lot of people feel, that's business. And this is, and I hate to be a moralist about it, but I am a moralist about it. I mean, I'm not a rich person, but I'm certainly not going to go work for someone who is absolutely vehemently opposed to what I believe in. I'm just not going to do that.
Right. Same. You always told me I would never be wealthy because of that attitude.
Right. Me too. So here we are. Uh-huh.
I also remember, speaking about money, when I first met you is a little bit later in the day, and you were holding court as usual. And everyone was just kind of keeping the questions for you surface. So I just asked, when did you stop charging what everyone else in the
Right.
industry said you should charge, and start charging what you needed to make this work, to make your life work, to make your business run? Do you remember what your answer was?
I don't, but I could imagine it was probably when I got a mortgage or something of that. What was my answer? I
You
hope.
said, when I got divorced.
Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. That makes yeah, that's probably more. Yeah, that's true. Yes, when there was nobody else that was going to be chipping in.
Yeah.
So, this was not a hobby for sure. And that if it was going to be a hobby, then I would have to get a real job to support my hobby. So I wasn't planning on doing that.
I always remember that, because for me at that time, I was dealing with a lot of that fear of what others will think if I put this price tag on my services, and have I paid enough dues, and da 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 da, and all of that. And so, one, I think that's when I fell in love with you, was your candor. But also, for me, it was a permission moment of, oh yeah, no one else is writing me checks. It's the clients. None of my competitors, none of my colleagues are the
Right.
ones writing me checks.
Good
It's
point. Yeah.
clients.
And at the end of the day, right, that's the only people that you're responsible to for what you charge.
Do you want to talk about, in the last several years, you changed how you charged?
Well, certainly. I mean, and again, I don't know what is going to be the future, depending on what happens in this coming year. But we had changed from charging a flat fee to charging a percentage because we do some very expensive events. And what was happening is that they were becoming a lot more costly, not through any fault of our own. Client would decide to hire a name entertainer, or change the venue, or everything would become a lot more elaborate. But because I had agreed to a specific flat fee, I was not being compensated for that. And it was very frustrating. So it finally decided I didn't want to take commissions, and I didn't want to have to mark things up. And I think the thing that is most fair and square and ethical for both parties is to charge a percentage of the spend, and not everything is included in there. We things that I do, like dress shopping, or for corporate clients, we sort of act as a concierge service on the side. Those kinds of things we don't charge for, but for the meat and potatoes of the event, we charge a percentage. And I find that that's not only enabled me to be able to live and support my staff and office and blah blah blah, but I think it's very explainable, as opposed to some random flat fee based on nothing.
Is it less sticker shock for them? Because your flat fee was not $10,000. It was a lot.
It was a lot. No, as a matter of fact, some of them are really, and people push back, and I understand that. And in which case, I will come up with a flat fee. The whole point is to keep the budget from moving enormously and not getting compensated. So I will come up with a flat fee based on an agreed upon budget. If the budget goes up a lot, again, not at my behest, at the client's behest, then that fee has to be renegotiated. So people feel more comfortable putting one fixed number in there. That's fine with me, but it will change if the other numbers change.
One of the weddings that prompted you to start making that switch over to percentage was because the scope of the work changed so much that you had to learn how to get privately secure cell phone towers put up
Exactly.
for the wedding and
Right. Just
for the
change. Yeah.
dignitary guests and all of that. So it's not just, oh, you're spending more, so I earn more. It's
No.
you're spending more and requiring a lot more work out of me.
Yes, that's a very good point. It's not arbitrary. It's not just, it is based on the scope of work, which is usually reflected in the spend. And also the fact that you are so involved that you can't take on any other work. So you're not only, not that you're charging them double, but you have to be able to compensate yourself for not being able to take on any other work during that time because it's more than you and your team can do.
Obviously, we're in a terrible year for everybody and an unexpected year. But you've also been through the recession in 91, 2001, 2008,
Right.
and now this one. Do you want to talk about how you weathered each of those at different points in your career?
Sure. I mean, I think 91, I didn't know. I had just started. So I didn't feel it as intensely because I had just gotten a couple of very nice jobs and I wasn't expecting to be making so much money. So I really didn't. I was like, it was not great, but it just wouldn't grow as much as I thought it might, but I wasn't really hurt by it. And by 2008, I had switched pretty much from corporate to social. So again, the number of events, it was not, people were cutting their budgets, but they weren't stopping weddings, bar mitzvahs, anniversaries. They were just cutting the budget. So again, it was painful, but I wasn't, some of my colleagues, 2007 was an extraordinary year. I mean, to the point of they were making $1 zillion and then everything stopped. So they were really much more in much more pain than I was financially. And, this is different because it's the first time we've ever lost an entire year of business, basically. I mean, 2020 gone with rare exception. But the issue is we have so many, we have a couple of very large events and I have some spokesperson work, nice contracts that are all booked for next year. So it's
Good.
thank you. But again, we just don't know what's going to happen. It depends on testing and vaccine and blah, blah, blah. And certainly, and in 2008, it was very much on top of my mind. And I keep saying it to people now. I mean, this is the time to decide if you really want to do this particular business. And I think, as I always say, women in particular have a hard time deciding they want to do something else because of the shame involved in, you had said you were going to do one thing and now you're going to do another. And that's why people stay in marriages that they shouldn't stay in, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, this would be a really good time to decide. Wait, I have to plug in. I'm losing. Be a really good time to decide if you want to do something else or if you want to, how much money you really think you need to make and is it viable? Can you make it in this business? And when would you be able to make it in this business? So you may need to do something more secure. Although at this point, I don't know what is more secure. I mean, we used to say, get a corporate job. That doesn't seem very secure now either. But you may need to do something that is at least less erratic and you don't have to go through these up and down periods that are that extreme. And also it's a good time to reflect on, everyone's very glib. I love this business. I love, but what is it that you love about it? And really decide, I mean, do you really love it? Or is it just because you said you loved it once? And is that same person, if you started, 10 years ago, are you the same person 10 years later? And not just event planning, but that's all I'm talking about. But I think for everything, this gave people a time to go, maybe I just don't want to do this anymore because, we don't know what's going to happen. I always say, if I could do anything else, I'd do it. It's I don't know how to do anything else. So there we go. There wasn't a lot of pivoting. involved. Although people keep saying pivot, pivot. I don't know what to pivot to. So
The word of 2020.
yes, pivot is the word. Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Do you want to talk more about that aspect you just mentioned about the shame women feel in particular about, I think, being seen as flighty if they change their mind about something?
good point. Yeah.
Because I do see that a lot in this industry in particular, not because the women in it are more prone to that, but because we are a predominantly female industry.
Right.
There are men in it, but it is more women than men. And I think sometimes other women can be harsher critics about that type of thing. And
Yeah.
that fear of gossip, maybe it holds people back from doing something they'd rather do.
No question. But, and I think, certainly in this, look, there's no shame or embarrassment this year. We're all in the same boat. So it's not like anybody screwed up or anybody failed or anybody, we all got leveled all across the board, one even playing field as far as that goes. But I think also because there's no barrier to entry, which is something that is talked about all the time. If someone goes to med school, for example, and then decides halfway through they don't want to be a doctor anymore, that is a momentous occasion, right? And doesn't happen very often. I think, with event planning, because there's no barrier, it certainly can appear to be flighty because, like, what the hell? I decided, it used to be that people who either were married to a wealthy man, because again, mostly women in our business, or got divorced or became, kids went to school, they would either go into party planning or real estate, right? Or interior design. So, classically, no barrier to entry, or little barrier to entry, and female sort of jobs, which really have a lot to do with sales as much as they do with talent. So I think, the whole thing, it's better now, but I don't think this is not a considered, with rare exceptions, a serious profession. It's still considered sort of la la la, plan parties sort of thing.
Yes, it can be very like, oh, she's just a wedding planner and it's frivolous and
Mhm.
she's not intelligent enough to do anything else
Right,
or to hold a real job,
right.
which I find hilarious as well as insulting. But hilarious because most of the people in this industry who are successful had successful careers before this industry.
Certainly,
You
certainly.
mentioned you went to chef school,
Right.
and I know a lot of other people who did that. I know people who were attorneys, people who were, some of them doctors, others who had, executive positions at giant corporations.
Right.
So I do think that can sometimes carry with it this pressure to prove yourself in a way that the other jobs don't, because the job titles automatically convey
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
intelligence.
And I think also part of our job is to not share with our clients how difficult our job is. That's part of the job, because you don't want them to feel the stress and the nervousness and the anxiety that you're feeling. That's why you get hired. So sometimes by doing that, by not showing our homework, as I always say, there is a sense that it's easy as pie because we're making it look that way, even though we all know internally that there are a few things more difficult or stressful than what we do, right?
I don't think most people, when they go into wedding planning without any background in any type of events, but when they just decide they're creative and like design and they'll go into wedding planning and they're good at the sales piece, I don't think any of them expect, like, oh, we'll be negotiating with customs brokers or
I
with
certainly did.
immigration at the border or whatever for these
I,
destination events.
I certainly did not. Yeah. And
Yeah.
still constantly shocked and amazed at uh, what's involved.
Do you want to talk about the impact that COVID's had on your business, aside from just all the events moving or vanishing?
Sure. I have a lovely, very expensive office in Manhattan that I just gave up because I'm not going into a 19 floor office building for 6 months. And even though at the moment I'm lucky enough to have the resources to pay for it, although it would clean me out, I want to be able to have a business when this ends. So I don't want to just dump it into an office that we won't be using for years. So, that's definitely an issue. I had a giant celebrity wedding that canceled. That certainly, it was going to be in Italy. It was all planned 5 days. I mean, that certainly didn't make my year. And it was definitely, I mean, obviously shocking and surreal, but in many ways, I mean, it brought some of us in the industry. We were having a phone call every Monday for months and months and months, about 20 of us who were, we compete, we have a very similar clientele, we charge similar things, and that was extremely refreshing, and all of us were very open and honest and vulnerable with each other. And again, because there was no shame that we all got wiped out the same way. But the mantra certainly is, I've been luckier than other people. I have legacy clients. I mean, I really do feel for people who were starting this business last year or this year, who are qualified, who would have been in a really good place. And I don't know what they're going to do, because it took me so long to get clients who then use you over and over again. And, to start now, that is just awful. I mean, all over New York are moving vans. A lot of the kids are moving, even kids in their 30s are moving back with their parents for the time being. They can't afford the rent here. There's no work. And a lot of the freelance people, a lot of the caterers, all the cater waiters, I mean, the caterers are getting killed far, because they have, by nature of the beast, so much more staff than any of us have. And they can't get a smaller office. They have huge kitchens. They have loading docks. They have, all sorts of things. They tasting rooms. There's no way that they can really scale down without closing. So it's definitely, I'm lucky. I have a nice little house in Brooklyn that the bank owns and is letting me live in. But I, I definitely, you don't ever expect to have a year off. And as I said, and I'm still feeling, fairly sanguine, because our first events are in April now, April, May 2021. But if those don't happen, that's a whole other thing. And that will be a double disaster, because then psychologically as well as financially, I can't afford to be out of work for 2 years. That's a whole other thing. Then I don't know what we will be doing next. I know a floral designer who's a good friend of mine, does some work for us, who's, we can talk about pivoting. She is very cleverly doing interior design, because there are things that are booming during this, as there always are, people, anything that has to do with home garden, home entertaining, those are doing quite well, because no one's going anywhere.
Yeah.
So spending a lot more time. Yeah.
I read a few months ago, towards the beginning of this, that companies like Home Depot and Lowe's and all of those home improvement stores were up in earnings, because people are stuck at home. They want to spruce it up. They want to make it look nicer for Zoom, but they just want to enjoy the space they're in when they're there with multiple people day after day.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely that. Destin's a veterinary nurse. He's been working straight through they're busier than ever, because people are home with their pets. They're saying, oh, he is limping, or so, things that they would not ordinarily notice. So they've been slammed. And the liquor stores are booming.
Of course. I would imagine.
Walk down the streets of Brooklyn every morning, looks like the night before was New Year's Eve. Wine bottles everywhere, because people are doing so. Yeah, that would be the thing to invest in.
You have a small team, and you always have. You have Gabby.
I have Samantha, and we usually have, for the most part, we have 2 or 3 others full time, usually 2 full time. And then, like this summer, we would have had 5 freelancers working between part-time and full-time for about 4 months that we had hired on. But I honestly thought when I started, and even maybe 10 years ago, that I was going to have 10 people working for me. But the issue was, what I am selling is very different than what some other people are selling. And what I am selling, for better or for worse, is me. So which is not to say Gabby runs some of her own events, the smaller events and things like that, but I have my eyes and hands on every single event we do, even if I'm not there. And the only reason I haven't been there in the past couple of months is because of COVID, because we did a small wedding in Michigan that I didn't feel like getting on a plane and going to, or another couple of small events. But with very rare exception, I am at every event. And if I'm not, I'm definitely on top of every event in collaboration with Gabby. And you can't do that with a larger business. And so some of the people I compete with who are very good are less expensive than I am because they're sending out junior people. The junior people may be incredibly talented. I don't know, but I know they haven't been doing it for 35 years. So it's just a different business. And perhaps to your point, certainly this year I was glad, someone had just quit, some very expensive person had just quit the week before COVID, because otherwise I'd be carrying them the whole time. So that was a blessing in disguise for us, not for them. And I was about to hire another very expensive person to replace them, and we just got lucky.
What do you think the impact this will have on the next few years as far as how people choose to celebrate and choose to host events, whether that's socially or even corporate?
I think corporate is, frankly, I think corporate's dead for the time being. I just don't see how a company, very similar to the recession 2008, you can't lay off a lot of people and then have a gala or a big marketing event. That's not going to happen. But I think marketing events like pop-up stores or spokesperson work, content, things like that, I think those are, will be thriving. More tighter and nimble ways of showcasing products as far as corporate events. But I think we usually do a Christmas party every year for a big hedge fund, which is more of a thank you, feel good party for their 300 of their people. That's not happening for sure. And I don't think events like that are happening. Fundraisers a lot of my colleagues are doing Zoom fundraisers. Some of them are successful, some are less successful. Those are very expensive as well. So it has to be a well-heeled company able to do it, between the tech and the production and the things that need to be sent to people to make it interactive. It is not an inexpensive proposition. So social events, I think, and maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better, but the people I'm talking to who are mostly now calling about fall 2021 are dying to have nice big parties. They just are. Everyone's over this, unfortunately, because people have to still pay attention. Nothing has changed. But they really, assuming that we can, they are really anxious to entertain and to celebrate and to embrace life such as it is, because it's been so depressing.
Right. Very depressing.
Yeah. It feels like the world's coming to an end between the fires and the election and Justice Ginsburg. I mean, it's a compilation of just sad, depressing things. So the people who do have the wherewithal are certainly, I believe, are going to use it to treat their family and friends to something fun.
I think so. I was talking to someone else about this, and I think we're going to see a lot more kids' parties because parents want to make this year up to their kids.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it. That's a really good point. Good. I'll have to start putting more of those on the website. Right. Yeah, no, that is a good point. Certainly in the same way that I've done, 14th and 15th birthdays for kids who aren't Jewish because they happen to live in a Jewish neighborhood and they went to so many bar and bat mitzvahs that the parents felt they had to throw a big shindig for their 14th birthday or 13th birthday just to make it up to them. So maybe that'd be good. Kids' parties are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if there's multiple kids.
Exactly.
That's an easy inroad to a legacy client.
There you go. You're right.
What are the couples asking for when they are calling or moving for next year? Like, are they wanting to scale down? Or because I think there's this perception that people in the ultra luxury wedding space don't ever deal with budget constraints with their clients, which isn't true.
That's absolutely not true. If anything, people feel if they're spending a certain amount, they should be able to get everything. And no matter what, everything has a price, right? It's not magic bucket. But most of them want a backup plan if, in fact, things are not under control. We don't have a vaccine, we don't have rapid testing. They want a backup plan. Most of my clients certainly are doing a smaller ceremony, teeny party now, 15 people, 20 people max, and are going ahead with the big wedding in a year. That's what they're planning. But the people who are calling for next fall want to know, what is the backup plan if we go ahead and plan this and something happens that makes it impossible to produce it, what happens then? And we're old, we have these calls, when Fauci and I were having drinks last week, I was like, I don't have a clue. I should have become aside from being an engineer and a lawyer, and I should have also become an epidemiologist, because I wish I had more answers, but I don't. I can't believe that they're going to let the world collapse, but I didn't think this would happen in the first place. So, right.
Right. And I think you and I talked about this before. I didn't necessarily expect this president to do much of anything about this, but I didn't expect him to interfere with the work of the CDC and the other people who are not politicians, but career government officials who do this work because they believe in it, because they are researching cures for these diseases. They are researching prevention. They do want to see society be bettered. So I didn't expect a lot from the White House, but I didn't expect the interference or it's blue states, they don't count.
No, it's shocking. I mean, it is, we could go on about this forever, you and I. It's insidious. It's shocking. It's now proven in Woodward's book. It's on the tape that he absolutely did know, and did know how bad it was, and did know how infectious it was, but decided, since his entire reelection is based on money, that was the thing, that trumped everything else. And it's amazing and really brutal that a disease could be politicized. It's actually, mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. I think that's what took me by surprise. The depths of his greed, not so much, but just the depravity of letting people die and interfering with people at the state and city levels and all of that. It's insane. It's insane.
Like one of the mad kings in the Shakespeare play, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw today, the CDC had put something up on Friday, and now they took it down. Now they're, obviously they were pressured to take it down about how far the disease travels airborne. They took it down. Now it's nuts. Every single thing. There is nothing that doesn't have political implications. So.
The CDC has had something on their website. I'm not sure if it's there now, but they had it up since February, when they found out about how COVID can spread through air conditioning.
Right, exactly.
And the vents, and how it infected 9 people at a restaurant, who then went out and infected communities. And it was buried. It was not, the first thing you see, or even anywhere near the homepage. It was buried on there, but it was on there. And I feel like, especially for our industry, people aren't understanding that indoor events are very susceptible to this because of that. It's not that people are just scared to dine indoors or to host an event indoors. It's because
the filter, absolutely.
Right. Like,
and viral load, right. Where, if you are exposed for a certain amount of time.
Well, and these places they can do testing. In some cases, they can do rapid testing if they have the means to get it privately. They can do all the safety precautions, but very few places are going to be switching out their air conditioning vents and cleaning out the filters daily even.
Right.
What a mess.
What a mess is right.
What are you most looking forward to?
This year or in life?
What are you most looking forward to when all of this is wrapped up as far as it can be wrapped up?
I want to go back to Europe. I love Europe. I love Italy. I love France. I'm looking forward to traveling. We've been doing a lot of traveling the last couple of years, both professionally, and Destin and I have been invited on a couple of great trips with one group of wonderful people. So it's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to not being, held hostage in my house. I want, and I guess I should have prefaced. I really, I have two of my very closest friends who, one lives in Oregon and one lives, my two best friends, and one lives in Palo Alto. And I'm really looking forward to seeing both of them in person. I really miss them, and I miss, and my other best friend Katie just had a baby 2 weeks ago, and I can't see the baby, which makes me crazy. So it's unthinkable that I couldn't see her when she was pregnant. Now I can't see the baby until things change. So a combination, mostly, connection with people I care about.